I was standing in the hospital room, still weak from 16 hours of labor, when my husband looked at our newborn daughter and said the words that shattered my world. "I want a DNA test." The room went silent. His mother gasped. His sister put her hand over her mouth, but his brother Robert just stood there in the corner, perfectly still, his face draining of all color. "James," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "What are you talking about?" "You heard me, Dorothy." His voice was cold, nothing like the man I'd married. "I want proof that child is mine." I felt the baby being lifted from my arms by a nurse. Everything was spinning. His mother was crying now, but not for me, for herself, for her family's reputation. "How could you do this to us?" James's voice was rising. "How could you humiliate my family like this?" But I was watching Robert. I was watching the way his hands trembled, the way he wouldn't meet anyone's eyes, the way he was slowly backing toward the door. And suddenly, fragments of memories I'd tried to bury came flooding back. Let me start from the beginning, because you need to understand how I got here. 3 years ago, I was a 28-year-old nurse working the night shift at Charleston Memorial. I grew up in a small house in North Charleston, daughter of a postal worker and a grocery store cashier. We didn't have much, but we had love. We had dignity. We had each other. That all changed the night a drunk driver plowed through a red light on Meeting Street. My parents died on impact. I had no siblings, no aunts or uncles. At 28, I was suddenly alone in the world. I threw myself into work because it was the only thing that made sense. Saving lives, helping people, being useful. That's where I met James Whitmore. He came into the ER one night with his nephew, who'd fallen off a horse at their family estate. Nothing serious, just a possible concussion. While I was monitoring the boy, James and I started talking. He was kind, gentle, different from the entitled rich men I'd seen come through those doors. He asked me to coffee, then dinner, then dancing at that old jazz club on King Street. I should have known it was too good to be true. James came from old Charleston money, the kind of family that had streets named after them, the kind that owned half the historic district. The Whitmores had been in Charleston since before the Civil War, and they never let anyone forget it. When James told his family he was dating a nurse from North Charleston, his mother nearly fainted. "She's beneath you, darling," she'd said, at our first family dinner at their estate. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but the walls in those old houses carry sound. What will people at the yacht club say? But James didn't care. Or at least, he said he didn't. "I love you, Dorothy," he told me that night, driving back to my tiny apartment. "I don't care what they think." 6 months later, he proposed, right there on the Battery at sunset, with the whole harbor watching. It was the most beautiful moment of my life. The wedding was a nightmare. His mother insisted on handling everything. The guest list was full of people I'd never met. The venue was their family's private club. My friends from the hospital weren't invited because there wasn't enough room, though somehow 200 of Charleston's elite managed to fit. I felt like a prop in someone else's production. But the worst part was Robert. James's younger brother was 30, unmarried, and according to family whispers, had never quite lived up to the Whitmore name. He worked at the family's investment firm, but everyone knew James was being groomed to take over. From the moment we met, something about Robert made my skin crawl. He stood too close, let his hand linger too long when we shook hands, made comments about how lucky James was to find someone so exotic and different. "Don't mind Robert," James would say when I mentioned it. "He's harmless, just socially awkward. But I'm a nurse. I'm trained to read people, to see signs. And every instinct in my body was screaming that Robert was not harmless." After the wedding, James and I moved into a carriage house on the family property. "It was temporary," he said, "until we found our own place," his mother insisted. "Family should stay close," she'd said, in that tone that made it clear it wasn't a suggestion. That's when the family dinners started. Every Sunday. Without fail, the whole Whitmore clan gathered at the main house for dinner. James's parents, his sister Victoria and her husband, Robert, various cousins and relatives, and me, the outsider, the nurse from North Charleston who'd somehow infiltrated their perfect world. I tried. God, I tried. I laughed at their inside jokes I didn't understand. I nodded along when they discussed their yacht club drama. I wore the dresses James's mother picked out because it was easier than fighting. But I started noticing something strange. After these dinners, I'd feel off, dizzy, confused. I'd go to bed early and wake up with gaps in my memory. James said I was just tired from work, adjusting to their lifestyle, the stress of being in a new family. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. The blackouts got worse. I'd wake up in our bed with my clothes disheveled, with bruises I couldn't explain. Once, I woke up in the guest room of the main house with no memory of how I got there. "You had too much wine at dinner," James said. "Robert helped you to bed. You should thank him." But I didn't remember drinking that much wine. I couldn't remember anything after dessert. I started keeping a journal, writing down what I remembered, how many drinks I'd had, how I felt. The pattern was clear. I only had these blackouts at the Whitmore estate, only at family gatherings, and Robert was always the one who helped me when I got too drunk. I tried to tell James. I tried to explain that something wasn't right. "You're paranoid, Dorothy," he said, and I heard his mother's voice in his tone. "You're not used to social drinking. Maybe nursing school didn't prepare you for our lifestyle." Our lifestyle. As if I was the problem. As if I was too unsophisticated to handle their world. So I stopped going to family dinners. I made excuses. Work schedule. Not feeling well. Anything to avoid that house and Robert's cold stare. James was furious. His mother was disappointed. But I didn't care. I felt safer away from them. Then I discovered I was pregnant. It was a shock. We hadn't been trying. I was on birth control. But the test was positive. Then another. Then a third. When I told James, his face lit up. The old James, the one I'd fallen in love with, came back for a moment. "A baby," he whispered, touching my stomach. "We're having a baby." His mother was thrilled. Suddenly I was worth something. I was giving the Whitmore family an heir. The Sunday dinners became mandatory again. "You need to be there," James said. "It's important for the baby to have family." But I was careful now. I never touched any drink. I didn't pour myself. I never ate anything Robert handed me. I stayed in the main rooms with other people. I thought I was safe. The pregnancy progressed normally. A girl, the ultrasound showed. James wanted to name her Caroline, after his grandmother. I agreed, too tired to fight. But something was changing in James. He was distant, cold. He'd spend hours locked in his office, making hushed phone calls. He'd look at me sometimes with something that looked like suspicion. "Is everything okay?" I'd ask. "Fine," he'd snap. "Everything's fine." I thought it was stress from work, from his mother's constant interference, from the pressure of becoming a father. I had no idea what Robert had been telling him. Labor started 3 weeks before my due date. Natural, the doctors said. Sometimes it just happens. James was there, but he was different, angry. He barely looked at me during the contractions, barely held my hand. When Caroline finally came, after 16 brutal hours, I expected him to soften, to see his daughter and fall in love. Instead, he called his entire family to the hospital. His mother, his sister, his father. And Robert? They filed into my room like I was on trial. I was still bleeding, still in pain, still trying to process the fact that I had a daughter. That's when James dropped the bomb. "I want a DNA test." The words didn't make sense at first. I thought I'd heard wrong. The pain medication, maybe. "What?" "You heard me. I want proof that baby is mine." His voice was ice. "I'm not raising another man's bastard." "James, what are you—" "Don't lie to me, Dorothy," he was shouting now. "I know what you did. I know about your affair." "Affair?" "I never." Robert told me everything. He pointed at his brother, who was standing in the corner, silent. "He saw you, with someone. In town. He has proof." I looked at Robert. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "That's not true," I said, but my voice was weak. Who would believe me? The poor nurse from North Charleston versus the entire Whitmore family? "We'll do the test," James's mother said, her voice like steel. "We'll settle this once and for all. If the child is a Whitmore, we'll deal with this privately. If not—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. I was trapped. If I refused the test, I looked guilty. If I took it, well, I knew the baby was James's. But what then? They'd already convicted me in their minds. "Fine," I whispered. "Do the test." They took Caroline from my arms. A nurse I didn't know drew blood from her tiny heel, swabbed her mouth. The whole time, James's family watched me like I was a criminal. Robert still wouldn't look at me. That's when I knew. That's when all those fragmented memories clicked into place. The blackouts, the bruises, the missing time, Robert always being the one to help me, the way he'd stand too close, the way he'd smile. He'd been drugging me. At those family dinners, at gatherings, whenever he could. And I'd been too ashamed, too confused, too gaslighted to understand what was happening. My hands started shaking. Not from fear, from rage. "How long?" I asked, looking directly at Robert. "How long have you been drugging me?" The room went silent. "Excuse me?" James's mother sputtered. "Your son," I said, my voice getting stronger. "Your precious Robert. How long has he been putting something in my drinks?" "That's ridiculous," James said, but there was doubt in his voice now. "Is it?" I looked at Robert, who had gone completely pale. "Explain why I only have blackouts at your family dinners. Why I only have gaps in my memory when Robert is around. Why I wake up with bruises I can't explain." "She's hysterical," Robert said, but his voice cracked. "Postpartum psychosis or something. The baby was just born 30 minutes ago." I shot back. "And I've been having these episodes for over a year." I could see it in James's face, the doubt creeping in, the memories of me trying to tell him, trying to explain, and him dismissing me. "That's insane," Robert said, backing toward the door. "I would never." "Then prove it," I said. "Take a drug test, right now. If you've been drugging me, you'd have access to something. Show us." "I don't have to prove anything to you," Robert snapped. And there it was, the mask slipping, the rage underneath. "Robert," James's father said quietly. "Son, what is she talking about?" "Nothing. She's lying. She's trying to cover up her affair." "What affair?" I demanded. "You said you had proof. Show them. Show everyone this supposed proof." Robert's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. "There is no proof," I said, "because there was no affair. But there were drugs. There were blackouts. There were things done to me that I couldn't remember. Things you made sure I couldn't remember." "You're crazy," Robert said, but he was at the door now, his hand on the handle. "The DNA test will prove the baby is James's," I continued. "And when it does, you're going to have to explain why you lied, why you tried to convince your brother that I cheated, why you tried to destroy my marriage." "Robert?" James's mother's voice was small now, uncertain. "Robert, what is going on?" He ran, just bolted from the room. His father went after him, shouting his name. James stood there, staring at me like he was seeing me for the first time. "Dorothy," he whispered. "My God, what did he do to you?" The DNA test came back 3 days later. Caroline was James's daughter. 99.99% certainty. But by then, we'd already learned the truth. Security footage from the estate showed Robert slipping something into my drinks at multiple family dinners. His computer revealed searches for date rape drugs, for how to manipulate someone's memory, for how to gaslight a victim into doubting themselves. And there was more. I wasn't the first. 2 other women came forward, women who'd worked at the family company, women who'd had similar experiences with Robert, women who'd been too afraid to speak up because who would believe them against a Whitmore? Robert was arrested, charged with multiple counts of sexual assault, drug possession. The family that had protected him, that had elevated him, had to face what he really was. James apologized. He cried. He begged for forgiveness. "I should have believed you," he said. "I should have listened." But the trust was broken. The marriage was over. Not because of what Robert did to me, but because James chose his brother's lies over my truth, because his mother chose their reputation over my safety, because the whole family had taught me that I was less than them, and I'd almost started believing it. I filed for divorce 3 months later. James didn't fight it. He pays child support. He sees Caroline every other weekend. He's a decent father, I'll give him that. But we're not family anymore. We're just 2 people who share a daughter. That was 34 years ago. I'm 62 now. Caroline is 33, married, With 2 children of her own, she knows the story. I told her everything when she turned 18, because she deserved to know the truth. Robert served 15 years in prison. He's out now, living in some small town in Georgia, a registered sex offender. The Whitmore family disowned him, erased him from their history like he never existed. But I didn't erase him from mine. Instead, I used that experience. I went back to school and became a forensic nurse. I learned how to identify signs of drug-facilitated sexual assault, how to collect evidence, how to believe victims when everyone else doubts them. I've worked with hundreds of women and men over the years, people who'd been drugged by family members, by trusted friends, by people in positions of power who thought they were untouchable. I started a foundation 10 years ago, the Dorothy Mitchell Foundation for Survivors of Family Sexual Abuse. We provide free testing, counseling, legal support. We train medical professionals to recognize the signs. We lobby for better laws. Because the thing about family sexual abuse is that it's the most hidden crime. People don't want to believe that a brother, a father, an uncle, a cousin could do something so evil. It's easier to blame the victim, to call them liars, to protect the family's reputation. I know, I lived it. James tried to reconnect a few years ago. He'd never remarried. He said he still loved me, that he'd spent 30 years regretting his choices. I was kind but firm. James, you chose your brother over me when I needed you most. That's not love. That's loyalty to the wrong person, he cried. He understood. My daughter asked me once if I regret marrying James, if I wish I'd never met the Whitmores. No, I told her. Because then I wouldn't have you, and I wouldn't have found my life's purpose. The truth is, what Robert did to me was evil. What James and his family did by not believing me was almost worse. But it taught me something crucial. It taught me that wealthy doesn't mean trustworthy, that family doesn't mean safe, that appearances can hide monsters. And it taught me that survivors are stronger than anyone imagines. I look at Caroline now, with her own daughters, and I see the cycle broken. I see young women who've been taught to trust their instincts, to speak up, to refuse to be gaslit. I see the foundation helping people who once felt as alone and helpless as I did. I see justice, even when it came 34 years too late. To every survivor out there who's reading this or listening, I believe you. Even if your family doesn't, even if the police don't, even if society doesn't, I believe you because I've been you. You are not crazy. You are not lying. You are not remembering it wrong. You are a survivor, and your story matters. Robert Whitmore tried to break me. His family tried to silence me. Charleston society tried to shame me. They all failed. I'm still here, still fighting, still helping others find their voice. And that's the real revenge. Not making them pay, though prison helped, but refusing to let them define me, refusing to be the victim they tried to make me. I'm Dorothy Mitchell. I'm a nurse, a mother, a grandmother, and an advocate. I'm a survivor, and I'm not going anywhere. If you or someone you know has experienced sexual assault, especially by a family member, please reach out. The Dorothy Mitchell Foundation has a 24-hour helpline. The National Sexual Assault Hotline is 1-800-656-HOPE. You are not alone. You are believed. You are worthy of justice. And you are so much stronger than you know.